It was one of those mornings when the city seemed to move faster than usual. The streets were already busy with people rushing to work, the smell of fresh bread and coffee drifting from small cafes that lined the sidewalks. She hurried along, balancing a cup of steaming coffee in one hand and a tote bag in the other, trying not to spill anything as she wove through the crowd. Today felt different, though she couldn't put her finger on why. Perhaps it was the soft drizzle that had started just a few minutes ago, or the faint smell of rain mixing with the morning air. She ducked into the bookstore to avoid getting soaked, shaking off her umbrella and brushing the drops from her hair. The bell above the door jingled softly, and she felt a small sense of relief as warmth replaced the chill outside. The store was quiet, except for the faint sound of a classical song playing from the speakers, and the gentle rustling of pages. She liked this place because it felt like stepping into another world, a calm little island in the chaos of the city. As she set her coffee down on the counter, noticed him almost immediately. He was standing near a stack of new releases, his eyes scanning the covers with interest. Something about the way he concentrated made her pause for a moment. He seemed entirely absorbed in the books, yet there was a casual ease in his posture, a quiet confidence that was hard to ignore. She tried to focus on putting away the returned books, but every now and then her eyes drifted back to him. He glanced up at that exact moment, and their eyes met. For a brief second, the world seemed to shrink, and the noise of the street, the drumming rain, and even the soft music in the store faded into the background. He smiled, small, polite smile, nothing grand, but it carried a warmth that made her heart skip. She returned it, slightly embarrassed to have been caught staring, quickly looked away, pretending to sort the books. The moment lingered longer than it should have. She felt a strange pull, a curiosity she hadn't felt in a long time. And then, as if on cue, he walked over, holding a book in his hands. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm and friendly. "Do you know if this one has been popular lately?" She glanced at the cover. "Oh, yes. It's been coming in and out of stock for weeks. A lot of people seem to love it." She hesitated, then added, "If you want, I can check the back shelf for the latest copies." He smiled again, a little more openly this time. "That would be great. Thank you." She walked toward the back of the store. He followed, keeping a polite distance. They moved through the narrow aisles lined with books of all kinds, the smell of old paper and ink filling the air. She felt an odd mix of nervousness and excitement, as though something important was about to happen, even though she had no idea what. When they reached the shelf, she quickly scanned for the book, pulling out a few copies. "Here," she said, handing one to him. Their fingers brushed slightly, and a small jolt of electricity ran through her, making her catch her breath. He looked at her, surprised, and then smiled again, this time with a hint of amusement. "Thank you," he said, flipping through the pages. "I'm not usually this prepared when I come to a bookstore." She laughed softly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Most people aren't, but it's okay. You found it eventually." They stood there for a moment, a quiet ease settling between them. It was unusual, she realized, to feel this comfortable around someone she had just met. Yet it felt natural, like two puzzle pieces fitting together without effort. "I'm glad I came in today," he said suddenly, almost as if he had realized it himself. "The rain drove me in here, and now, well, I'm glad I didn't just keep walking." She smiled, unsure what to say at first. "Me too," she admitted. "Sometimes it's nice to take a break from the routine." He nodded, looking around the store again. There's something calming about this place. It's easy to forget the city outside." She glanced at him, noticing the sincerity in his eyes. It was rare to meet someone who seemed so grounded, so present in the moment. "Yes," she said softly. "It's my favorite spot to escape for a little while." They continued to talk, first about books, then slowly drifting into other topics. The city, the rain, their favorite coffee spots, and even small anecdotes from their lives. Each story he told seemed to draw her in, and she found herself sharing things she usually kept private, small details about her family, her dreams, and the little quirks that made her who she was. He listened, truly listened, and responded with genuine interest. making her feel seen in a way that few people ever did. Time passed unnoticed. The drizzle outside had turned into a steady rain, yet neither of them seemed to mind. The world beyond the bookstore walls no longer existed. Only the quiet corners between shelves and the easy rhythm of conversation. Eventually, she realized she had spent longer in the store than she had planned. The clock on the wall reminded her that she needed to get to work. She picked up her bag, feeling a slight pang of disappointment. He noticed immediately. "I guess I should let you go," he said, a little reluctantly. "But would it be okay if I see you again? Maybe we could meet here, or grab coffee sometime?" Her heart skipped again. It was bold, yet not overbearing. She felt a thrill of excitement mixed with nervousness. I'd like that," she said, smiling. "Maybe this weekend?" "Perfect," he said, smiling widely. "I'll look forward to it." They exchanged a few more words, careful not to make the moment awkward, and then she stepped toward the door. The bell jingled once more as she exited, the rain lightly tapping her umbrella. She walked back into the city, but her mind lingered in the warmth of the bookstore. On the conversation, the smiles, and the strange but undeniable connection she felt. Meanwhile, he stayed behind for a few moments, flipping the book he had picked up through his fingers. He couldn't stop thinking about her, the way she laughed, the small way her eyes lit up when she talked about books, and the way she had made him feel unexpectedly comfortable. He realized that something rare had happened today, something that didn't happen often. And even as the rain fell outside, he felt a quiet hope that this was just the beginning. In the following days, their paths crossed in small, seemingly random ways. She noticed him at a cafe she visited on her lunch break, sitting at a table near the window with a book she recognized. Their eyes met across the room, and they shared a brief, shy smile. He waved, and she waved back. Feeling a warmth spread through her chest again, she couldn't help but think about him throughout the day. Every small detail, the tone of his voice, the way he listened, the calm yet confident way he carried himself kept replaying in her mind. She realized she had been waiting for something, though she hadn't known exactly what, and now it seemed like it had finally arrived. Quietly, without fanfare. He, too, found himself thinking about her. He replayed their conversation, remembering every laugh, every question, and every pause where it felt like the world had stopped for just a moment. He smiled to himself, realizing that the simplest encounters could sometimes have the most profound effect. By the time the weekend arrived, both of them were eager to see each other again. The anticipation made the world feel brighter, and even the smallest things, a text message confirming the time, a shared joke about the weather, felt significant. The connection that had begun over books and coffee was growing, gently, quietly, and in a way that neither had expected but both welcomed. And so, what had started as a chance encounter on a rainy morning in a quiet bookstore began to unfold into something more meaningful. Both felt it, the subtle excitement, the quiet hope, the curiosity about what the future might bring. Neither rushed it. They simply allowed themselves to enjoy the moment, savor the connection, and discover the unexpected joy that could come from meeting someone who seemed to understand a part of them that few others did. It was a morning like any other. Yet it was the morning that changed everything, quietly, unexpectedly, and completely. And though neither of them knew it at the time, it was the beginning of a story that would soon capture the attention of everyone who heard it, a story of connection, discovery, and the simple, profound power of a moment shared. The weekend arrived with a soft brightness that made the city feel lighter, almost as if it too had been waiting for this day. She woke up early, a little more excited than usual, her thoughts drifting immediately to the meeting they had planned. Even small details felt significant, the sun streaming through her window, the hum of morning traffic, the faint smell of coffee brewing in her kitchen. It was the kind of morning where every moment seemed to hold possibility. She arrived at the small cafe they had chosen, cozy place with wooden tables and soft jazz playing in the background. The familiar scent of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries made her smile as she looked around, hoping he would be there soon. She found a table near the window, one that allowed her to watch people passing by. Settled in, her hands wrapped around a warm cup. The nervous excitement made her fingers tremble slightly. Not long after, He walked in, shaking off a light drizzle that had started outside. Their eyes met immediately, and both smiled. The kind of smile that carried the memory of the first encounter, warm and full of quiet happiness. He approached the table, and they greeted each other with a simple "hi" that somehow felt significant. They ordered their drinks and settled into an easy conversation, picking up right where they had left off at the bookstore. At first, they talked about small, casual things, the weather, the city, the cafe itself, but gradually, their conversation grew deeper. They shared stories from their childhood, memories of family gatherings and little experiences that had shaped them. Each story revealed something new, something personal, and with every word, they found themselves drawn closer. She laughed easily at his jokes, the sound of it filling the space between them. He noticed how her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved, and he found himself smiling without even realizing it. For the first time in a long while, both felt completely comfortable with someone new, like meeting an old friend rather than a stranger. After a while, they decided to take a walk. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening with reflected light from the buildings and puddles. They wandered through quiet side streets, past small shops and gardens, sharing observations about the city and the little things that often go unnoticed. The rhythm of their steps matched the easy flow of conversation, and neither felt the need to fill silences with words. At one point they stopped at a small park. Children were playing near the fountain, their laughter mixing with the gentle splash of water. He pointed out a small bird perched on a branch, and she bent slightly to watch it, noticing the delicate movement of its wings. "It's amazing," she said softly, "how something so small can seem so free." He nodded, following her gaze. "It reminds me that even when life feels heavy, there are moments of lightness everywhere. You just have to notice them," appreciating the thoughtfulness behind his words. There was a quiet wisdom in the way he spoke, a gentle perspective that made ordinary things feel extraordinary. She felt herself relaxing completely, enjoying the simplicity of the moment and the growing connection between them. They found a bench near a cluster of flowers and sat down. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting soft light over the park. For a while, they simply watched the world around them, enjoying the calmness and the shared presence. Every so often, one would point out something interesting: a butterfly hovering near a flower, a couple walking hand in hand, a dog chasing its tail, and they would laugh together, the sound blending with the gentle background of the city. As the afternoon progressed, they started talking about dreams and ambitions. She shared her hopes of pursuing a career that allowed her to help others, while he talked about his own goals and the challenges he faced balancing work and personal life. It was a conversation that revealed vulnerability and honesty, a rare kind of openness that neither had expected but both welcomed. "You seem to have a clear idea of what you want," she said, a little admiringly. "I think that's really inspiring." He smiled, slightly embarrassed. "I try, but sometimes it feels like there's so much to figure out. Meeting someone who seems to understand makes it easier, though." Her heart warmed at his words. She hadn't realized she had been hoping to find someone who could understand her in a similar way. "I feel the same," she admitted softly. They continued walking, eventually stopping at a small street market that had popped up for the weekend. Stalls lined with fresh fruit, handmade crafts, and local delicacies created a vibrant scene. They wandered through, sampling treats and chatting with vendors, laughing at small surprises along the way. He bought a small handmade notebook, and she chose a delicate bracelet, each silently thinking of the other while making their selections. As the evening approached, the city lights began to glow, casting warm reflections on wet streets. They found themselves walking near a river, the water shimmering under the street lamps. The moment felt intimate, quiet, and full of possibility. Neither wanted the day to end, yet both knew it would eventually have to. They stopped on a small bridge overlooking the water. The gentle sound of the river flowing beneath them created a calm, soothing background. He turned to her, hesitating slightly before speaking. "I've really enjoyed today," he said, his voice low and sincere. "More than I expected," she smiled, feeling a similar warmth. "Me too," she admitted. "It's Nice to spend time with someone who makes everything feel easy. There was a pause, a comfortable silence where they simply looked at each other, the connection between them growing stronger. It was a moment of quiet understanding, a subtle acknowledgement that something important had begun. Something neither had anticipated, but both felt deeply. Eventually, they walked back toward the cafe where they had met, reluctant to part ways. When they reached the door, they paused, neither wanting the day to end completely. He looked at her, a small smile playing on his lips. "I don't want this to be the last time we meet," he said softly. She nodded, feeling the same hesitation. "It doesn't have to be," she replied. "I'd like to see you again soon." They exchanged a simple goodbye, each walking away with a sense of lightness and anticipation. The day had been ordinary in many ways, just a walk, a cafe visit, and casual conversation, but it had also been extraordinary. Filled with moments of connection, laughter, and shared understanding in the days that followed, their interaction continued to grow. Small messages exchanged, brief calls, and spontaneous meetings created a rhythm that felt natural and effortless. Each encounter deepened their bond, revealing more about their personalities, hopes, and dreams. The friendship that was forming carried the promise of something more. Though both were careful to let it develop at its own pace, friends and colleagues began to notice the change as well. She found herself talking about him more often, smiling at memories of shared moments and feeling a warmth that hadn't been there before. He too found that his thoughts frequently returned to her the way she laughed. Her curiosity about the world, the ease with which she could make him feel comfortable. Even in ordinary moments, walking to work, waiting in line at the grocery store, or sitting in a cafe, thoughts of the other seemed to appear unexpectedly, bringing a quiet joy that neither could ignore. It was a subtle, beautiful kind of connection. One that didn't need grand gestures or dramatic confessions to feel meaningful. They began sharing more personal experiences, little stories from their lives that revealed vulnerability and trust. She talked about challenges she had faced in her career, moments of self-doubt, and the people who had influenced her journey. He shared his own struggles, the pressures of responsibility, and the lessons learned from mistakes. Each story created a deeper understanding, a mutual respect that strengthened the growing bond between them. One evening, they met again at the same cafe. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from light topics to deeper reflections. At one point, he reached across the table and gently touched her hand, a small gesture that carried significance. She felt a rush of warmth and returned the touch, the simple act conveying a shared feeling that neither had fully expressed in words. As the night grew darker, they reluctantly parted ways, walking in opposite directions through quiet, lamplit streets. The air was cool and refreshing, carrying the faint scent of rain and the distant hum of the city. Both felt a sense of anticipation for the next meeting, a quiet excitement that had become a part of their routine. In the following weeks, their connection continued to grow. They discovered shared interests, similar values, and a mutual desire to support each other in their goals. Simple act, sharing a favorite book, trying a new cafe, or just spending quiet time together became moments of joy and closeness. Each meeting reinforced the sense that what had started as a chance encounter was blossoming into something meaningful and lasting. And though neither could predict the future, both felt the quiet certainty that this was just the beginning. The friendship that had formed over shared stories, laughter, and small gestures of kindness was evolving into something deeper. The connection was real, human, and full of possibility, a love that was growing quietly, naturally, and beautifully. One day at a time, the city had settled into the rhythm of midweek, with people moving briskly through streets, coffee shops buzzing, and traffic humming in its usual constant beat. She found herself walking along a familiar route, her mind partly on the errands she needed to complete, but mostly on him. Thoughts of their last meeting lingered, small moments replaying in her head, the way he laughed at something she had said, the warmth in his eyes, the quiet attentiveness with which he listened. She smiled at herself, realizing that these thoughts made even the dullest moments feel brighter. It was a day that began like any other, yet the world felt subtly different. She could not explain why, but there was a sense of anticipation, a gentle hope that today might hold something unexpected. As she turned a corner near a small park, she noticed him ahead, standing near a tree, looking around as if searching for someone. Their eyes met immediately, and she felt that familiar jolt of excitement. He smiled, a wide, genuine smile that made her heart lift. "Hey," he called softly, walking toward her. His steps were quick, yet careful, as if not to rush the moment. "Hi," she replied, her voice carrying both surprise and pleasure. "I didn't expect to see you here. I was just finishing some errands nearby," he said, slightly out of breath. "I thought I'd take a short walk. Looks like our paths crossed again." They laughed softly, a shared understanding passing between them. It was one of those rare moments where nothing needed to be explained, and the simple presence of the other felt enough. They decided to walk together, their pace slow, allowing conversation to flow easily, moving from casual observations to small stories about the week's events. As they strolled through the park, the city noise faded into the background. Birds chirped in the trees, and the faint scent of flowers filled the air. The way the sunlight filtered through the leaves created dancing patterns on the pavement, adding a quiet magic to their walk. Each step they took seemed to bring them closer, not just physically, but in the subtle, unspoken understanding growing between them. After some time, they found a quiet bench near a small fountain. Water splashed gently, creating a soothing rhythm that matched the calmness settling over them. They sat, side by side, feeling the ease that had been developing over weeks of shared moments. The conversation shifted to more personal topics, and for the first time, they began to share the deeper layers of their thoughts and feelings. She spoke about challenges she had faced in her life, times when things had seemed overwhelming, and the moments of self-doubt that had followed. She spoke honestly, her voice steady, but with a hint of vulnerability. He listened attentively, not interrupting. His eyes focused on her in a way that made her feel truly heard. When she finished, he reached out, lightly touching her hand in a reassuring gesture. "I'm glad you shared that with me," he said quietly. "It means a lot that you trust me enough to open up." Her heart warmed at his words. Trust was not something she gave lightly, yet with him, it felt natural, almost effortless. She nodded, squeezing his hand briefly. "I do trust you," she admitted softly. "It feels different with you. Comfortable in a way I didn't expect." He smiled, a gentle, understanding smile. "I feel the same," he said. "There's something about being with you that just makes things feel easier, lighter." They sat in silence for a few moments, the kind of comfortable silence that only exists between people who are beginning to understand each other deeply. The fountain bubbled quietly, and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze created a serene backdrop. Neither felt the need to speak, simply enjoying the presence of the other. The quiet connection that had been steadily growing. After some time, they decided to continue their walk. The streets were quieter now, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. They wandered without a destination, sharing small stories about their lives, childhood memories, and favorite places in the city. With every word, they found new ways to connect, new details that made the other more real, more relatable, and more fascinating at one point. They stumbled upon a small bookshop tucked into a corner street. The sign was faded, but the charm of the place was undeniable. They stepped inside, the bell above the door ringing softly. The air smelled of old pages and dust, a comforting aroma that seemed to transport them to another time. They wandered through the aisles together, pointing out books they had read, favorites from childhood, and novels they longed to explore. He picked up a worn copy of a poetry collection and read a line aloud. The words soft, yet meaningful. She smiled, appreciating the tenderness in the way he read. "You make even simple things feel special," she said, her voice tinged with admiration. He glanced at her, eyes reflecting a quiet happiness. "That's because you notice the small things too," he replied. "Being with you makes everything better." The moment hung between them, unspoken yet profoundly understood. There was a subtle shift, a recognition that the connection they shared was no longer just friendship. It was something deeper, a mutual understanding and attraction that neither could ignore. After leaving the bookstore, they found themselves at a quiet cafe nearby. They ordered coffee and sat near a window, watching the city pass by. Conversation flowed effortlessly, yet there was an undercurrent of unspoken feelings, small glances, and gentle touches that carried more meaning than words could express. As evening approached, a sudden rain began to fall, light at first, then steadily. They hurried under a nearby awning, laughing as they tried to stay dry. The shared laughter, the playful teasing, and the subtle concern for each other created a bond that felt strong and undeniable. When the rain eased, they continued walking, their pace slower, more deliberate. At one point, he took her hand, holding it gently. She felt a warmth spread through her, a comforting and exciting feeling all at once. "I don't want this day to end," he admitted softly, his voice low and sincere. She looked up at him, eyes reflecting the same sentiment. "Neither do I," she whispered. "It's nice being with you like this." They paused near a quiet square, the city lights reflecting on wet pavement. The world seemed to have slowed, creating a space just for them. He turned to her, gently lifting her hand to his lips, a soft, fleeting kiss that carried all the feelings neither had yet fully expressed. She felt a rush of emotion, a mixture of excitement, comfort, and the subtle thrill of a connection deepening. The kiss was brief, but it marked a turning point. It was a silent acknowledgement of the growing feelings, a mutual recognition that their bond was moving beyond friendship. Neither felt rushed, but both understood the significance of the moment, the quiet promise it held. They continued walking slowly, hand in hand, the city around them buzzing yet somehow distant. Every glance, every touch, every shared smile reinforced the sense that something rare and meaningful was unfolding between them. It was no longer just chance encounters or casual meetings. It was becoming a story of its own, full of depth, warmth, and subtle joy. In the following days, their connection deepened further. Small gestures, sending a message to check on each other, sharing a favorite song, recommending a book, became part of their routine. The anticipation of meeting, the comfort of shared moments, and the growing understanding of each other created a rhythm that felt natural and fulfilling. She began to notice the little ways he cared, the way he remembered small details about her life, the way he offered support when she mentioned a challenge, the way his smile seemed to brighten even the dullest day. He, in turn, noticed her attentiveness, her kindness, and the way she made him feel understood in a world that often felt overwhelming. One evening, they met at the park again, a place that had become symbolic of their connection. They walked slowly, sharing stories, laughing, and sometimes walking in comfortable silence. At one point, he stopped and looked at her, eyes soft and earnest. "I'm really glad I met you," he said quietly. "I didn't expect to find someone like you, someone who makes everything feel right." Her heart swelled at his words. "I feel the same," she replied. "It's like everything just fits when we're together." They continued walking, hand in hand, the city lights reflecting off wet streets. The world around them alive, yet secondary to the bond growing between them. Each step, each shared moment reinforced the understanding that what they had was rare, was valuable, and worth nurturing. As the night deepened, they finally parted, lingering in the doorway of the cafe. There was no need for grand declarations or promises. The connection between them was already strong, evident in every glance, every touch, and every smile. They simply said goodnight, knowing that the next meeting, the next shared moment, would continue the story they were creating together. And so, the days continued, each one building on the last. Their connection grew steadily, naturally, and beautifully. Friendship had shifted into something deeper, a quiet romance full of mutual respect, understanding, and care. Every encounter, every conversation, and every small gesture brought them closer, forming a bond that felt both exciting and comforting. The city continued its constant rhythm, but within it, a new story was unfolding, a story of trust, warmth, and the slow, steady unfolding of love. Neither knew what the future would hold, Yet both felt the quiet certainty that this connection born from simple encounters and nurtured with care was the beginning of something extraordinary. A love that would grow naturally, deeply, and beautifully over time. The days had begun to take on a comfortable rhythm, filled with small joys, shared laughter, and the quiet excitement of discovering each other. Yet, as often happens in life, even the sweetest routines face unexpected challenges. She had been looking forward to a weekend trip for work, something that was meant to be a short escape from her usual routine. It was a busy week, and she felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness as she packed her bag. Amid the packing, her mind drifted to him. She hadn't realized how much his presence had begun to matter to her until she thought about leaving for even a couple of days. The thought of being apart, even briefly, created a subtle ache she hadn't expected. Meanwhile, he was buried in his own world of responsibilities. Work had been demanding, and he found himself pulled in multiple directions at once. Emails, meetings, and deadlines consumed most of his days. And he often went to bed exhausted, thinking about everything he hadn't finished. Yet, amidst the busyness, thoughts of her were a constant presence. He replayed moments they had shared, their walks, conversations, laughter, and the subtle warmth of her hand in his. It was these thoughts that brought him small bursts of happiness. Even on the most exhausting days, when they finally met again, it was in the familiar comfort of the small cafe where so many of their early conversations had unfolded. She arrived a little flustered, her bag slung over her shoulder, hair slightly messy from the wind outside. He noticed immediately, his smile widening as he saw her. "You look like you've been running the whole city," he teased gently. Gesturing toward her bag, she laughed, shaking her head. "It's been one of those weeks," she admitted. "I'm glad we could meet, even if it's just for a little while." They ordered coffee and settled into a corner table, the familiar surroundings giving a sense of comfort amidst the chaos of life. Their conversation began light, talking about their week, small observations about the city, and trivial things that often serve as the glue for human connection. Yet beneath the casual talk, there was an undercurrent of concern, both aware that life was becoming a little more complicated. As they talked, she mentioned the upcoming trip. "It's just a few days, but I hate leaving everything behind," she said softly. "And I'll miss this. I'll miss seeing you." He reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "I'll miss you too," he said. "But it's just a short time. We'll catch up as soon as you're back. And until then, we can still talk, text, or call. It won't feel like too long." She nodded, comforted by his words. "I know. It's just, I hate the idea of being apart, even briefly." He squeezed her hand lightly. "That just means this matters. It means we've built something real. And that's worth a little waiting." The next few days were filled with the usual flurry of activity, yet both found small ways to stay connected. Texts full of little jokes, shared pictures of things they saw that reminded them of the other, and brief phone calls became lifelines during the temporary distance. Even when they were apart, their connection continued to grow, quietly and steadily, like a plant stretching toward the sun. When she returned, they met again in the park where so many of their meaningful conversations had taken place. The reunion was warm, almost like coming home. There were smiles, laughter, and a quiet relief at being together again. The brief separation had reminded them both how much the other meant to them and strengthened the subtle bond that had been growing. Yet life was not always easy. He faced an unexpected challenge at work, a project that demanded long hours and immediate attention. The pressure was immense, and for the first time began to feel stretched thin, worried that he couldn't be fully present in the ways he wanted to be. He worried about disappointing her, about the small moments they might miss, and about how the distance of work could affect the connection they had nurtured so carefully. She noticed his distraction almost immediately. During their next meeting, she saw him frown over his phone, checking messages more often than usual and sighing at intervals. She didn't want to intrude, but her concern grew quietly. "Everything okay?" she asked gently, placing a hand over his. He looked at her, a mixture of worry and relief crossing his face. "It's just, Work has been overwhelming lately, he admitted. I want to be present when we're together, but sometimes it feels like I can't give my full attention. I hate that. She smiled softly, squeezing his hand. I understand, she said. Life can get busy, but we'll figure it out. Being here now, together, that's what matters. Her reassurance brought a weight off his shoulders. They talked openly about their challenges, discussing ways to stay connected despite busy schedules and unexpected demands. They realized that the key was communication, honesty, and patience, qualities that would strengthen their relationship rather than weaken it. Over the following weeks, they faced small misunderstandings and moments of frustration. A miscommunication about plans, a delayed response to a message, a stressful day leading to a curt remark. These were not major conflicts. Yet they tested the patience and understanding they had been building. Each instance required careful handling, gentle words, and a willingness to listen. Through it all, they discovered the importance of empathy. He learned to recognize when she needed space or reassurance, and she learned to appreciate the pressures he faced. They developed a rhythm of supporting each other, of offering encouragement when the other felt worn down, and of celebrating small victories together. These moments of challenge, rather than weakening their bond, added depth and resilience to it. One particularly rainy evening, they met at the cafe after a long day. Both had experienced stress, she from work deadlines, he from professional obligations. They sat together quietly, sipping coffee, the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Neither spoke much at first, simply enjoying the presence of the other, finding comfort in shared silence. After some time, she reached across the table and touched his hand. You don't have to pretend everything is perfect, she said softly. I know life can be hard, and that's okay. We're here for each other no matter what. He looked at her, gratitude shining in his eyes. You make it easier, he admitted. Just knowing you're here, it helps more than I can say. They spent hours talking, sharing their frustrations, fears, and hopes. It was not an easy conversation, but it was necessary. By the end of it, both felt lighter, reassured, and more connected than before. The challenges of life had tested them, but they had faced them together, and their bond had grown stronger as a result. In the following days, they continued to navigate life's pressures. Busy schedules, unexpected responsibilities, and small conflicts were now met with a newfound patience and understanding. Each obstacle became an opportunity to strengthen their connection, to communicate more openly, and to support each other in meaningful ways. They also found moments of joy amidst the challenges. A spontaneous visit to a quiet park, sharing a meal at a small hidden cafe, or laughing over a shared joke. These simple acts became anchors in the midst of life's demands. They reminded each other that even when things were difficult, there was always space for connection, laughter, and care. Through these experiences, they discovered that love was not just about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up, even when tired, about listening, even when distracted, about patience, even when frustrated. It was about building trust, understanding, and a shared sense of resilience. One evening, after a particularly long week, they found themselves walking along a quiet street, the city lights reflecting in puddles from a recent rain. They paused at a small bridge overlooking a calm river, the gentle flow of water creating a soothing backdrop. He took her hand, holding it gently. As they watched the reflections dance across the surface, I've realized something, he said softly. Life isn't always easy, and we'll face challenges. But being with you, it makes everything feel possible. Even when things get hard, I know we can get through it together. She smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. I feel the same, she said. Life isn't perfect, but we have each other. That makes all the difference. They stood there in quiet understanding, the world around them moving on, yet for this moment, it felt as if time had slowed. The challenges they had faced, the misunderstandings, the busy schedules, they all seemed smaller, the face of the connection they had built. As they walked back toward the city streets, hand in hand, they felt a renewed sense of hope and commitment. Life would continue to present challenges, but they now had the tools, understanding, and patience to navigate them together. Their love had grown deeper, more resilient, and more meaningful because they had faced difficulties side by side. And so, life continued with its mix of challenges and joys, mundane moments and extraordinary discoveries. They learned that love was not only about the happy, carefree times, but also about supporting each other through the difficulties, celebrating small victories, and finding strength in shared understanding. Their bond had become something rare, something real, and something that would continue to grow as they faced the future together. The city had changed with the seasons, yet some things remained constant. Their connection, nurtured through chance encounters, shared laughter, and quiet understanding, had grown into something profound. After the challenges they had faced, the small misunderstandings, and the pressures of life, what they had built was steady, real, and full of warmth. It was a bright morning, the kind where the sunlight made the streets glow with a gentle warmth. She walked through the familiar neighborhood, her thoughts drifting to him as she often did. There was a quiet excitement in her chest, a sense that today might hold something memorable. She had learned to cherish these moments of anticipation, realizing that happiness often resided in the small details: a shared look, a gentle smile, the sound of laughter echoing in the air. He was already at their favorite cafe when she arrived, sitting by the window, sipping coffee, and watching the city move outside. When he saw her, his face lit up with a smile that made her heart lift. She waved and he waved back, a small, simple gesture that carried so much meaning. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm and calm. "I was hoping we'd meet today." "Good morning," she replied, sliding into the seat across from him. "I'm glad we did. It feels right being here with you." They began their day with light conversation, catching up on small details of their week. But soon their words drifted into deeper territory. They talked about the journey they had shared, the moments of joy, the small difficulties, and the lessons they had learned from each other. Each story, each reflection, added to the sense that their connection had been worth every effort, every challenge, and every small act of care. He reached across the table, lightly touching her hand. "I can't believe how far we've come," he said softly. "From that first rainy morning in the bookstore to now, it's been incredible." She smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. "It really has. And it's not just the fun moments. It's everything: the challenges, the laughter, the quiet times. It all matters because it brought us here." After finishing their coffee, they decided to take a walk. The streets were alive with people. Yet for them, the world seemed to slow down. They wandered through familiar paths, past shops and small parks. Noticing the little details, they often overlooked the way the sunlight bounced off windows, the scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery, the soft laughter of children playing in a garden. Each small detail felt meaningful, a reminder that life's beauty often resides in the simplest moments. At a small park, they paused near a fountain, the gentle splash of water creating a soothing rhythm. He turned to her, his expression serious yet tender. "I've been thinking," he said, "about us, about what this connection means. And I want you to know that. I want to be part of your life fully. Not just for moments, but for everything that comes." She looked at him, her heart swelling. "I feel the same," she said softly. "Being with you. It feels like home. I want that too." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the world around them fading into the background. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic confessions, just a quiet, mutual understanding, a recognition that they had found something rare, something real, and something worth cherishing. The following weeks were filled with shared experiences that deepened their bond. They explored hidden corners of the city, discovered quiet cafes, and wandered through small art galleries. Each experience became a memory, a moment of joy that strengthened their connection. They laughed, debated, and learned from each other, discovering new perspectives and appreciating the uniqueness of the other's personality. They also faced life's ordinary pressures: work, responsibilities, and occasional conflicts. But now these challenges felt smaller, more manageable, because they faced them together. They developed a rhythm of understanding, compromise, and mutual support. Even when disagreements arose, they navigated them with patience, respect, and care. Realizing that love was not only about happiness, but also about growth, understanding, and shared resilience. One quiet evening, they decided to revisit the bookstore where it had all begun. The familiar scent of paper and ink, the gentle hum of the air, and the calm atmosphere brought back memories of their first encounter. They wandered through the aisles, pointing out books they had read and recommending new ones. Laughing softly at small discoveries, he stopped in front of a shelf, holding a book he had picked out. "I wanted to show you this," he said. "It's a story about finding unexpected connections and realizing their importance." "It reminded me of us," she smiled, touched by the thoughtfulness behind the gesture. "It's perfect," she said softly. "Just like this moment." After leaving the bookstore, they walked through the quiet streets, hand in hand, feeling a sense of contentment and calm. The city lights reflected on wet pavement from a recent rain, creating a magical glow. They paused at a small bridge overlooking a calm river, the gentle flow of water matching the serene rhythm of their hearts. He turned to her, eyes full of sincerity. "I want us to continue building this life together," he said quietly. "I want to face everything with you, the good, the bad, the ordinary, and the extraordinary. I want to share moments, memories, and everything in between. Will you continue this journey with me?" She felt a surge of emotion, a warmth that made her eyes shine. "Yes," she said softly, her voice steady yet full of feeling. "I want that too. I want to face life with you, in every way." They stood there for a while, hand in hand, watching the reflections on the water, feeling the quiet certainty of a connection that had grown stronger with every shared experience. It was a love that had been nurtured through patience, understanding, laughter, and care, a love that felt real, enduring, and deeply human. In the weeks that followed, their bond continued to flourish. They celebrated small victories together, shared quiet mornings over coffee, and found joy in everyday moments. The ordinary became extraordinary simply because they were together, and each day added another layer to the tapestry of their shared life. Friends and family began to notice the depth of their connection. Conversations about them carried admiration and quiet awe. As people witnessed a love that was grounded, patient, and authentic, their story born from a simple encounter and nurtured through care and attention became an inspiration to those around them, a reminder that genuine connections often grow quietly, subtly, and unexpectedly. They also faced moments of reflection, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. The chance encounters, the long conversations, the small acts of care and understanding, all of it had led to this steady, enduring connection. They realized that love was not about perfection or dramatic moments, but about consistency, attention, empathy, and shared growth. On a quiet Sunday morning, they sat together in the park, the city moving gently around them. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and he held her close, both of them savoring the simplicity and beauty of the moment. "I never expected to find something like this," she said softly. "A connection that feels real, that grows naturally, and that makes even ordinary days special." He kissed her forehead gently. "Neither did I," he replied, "but I'm grateful every day that it happened, that we happened." They spent the rest of the day walking, talking, and simply being together. There were no grand plans, no urgent deadlines, just the quiet, profound joy of sharing life with someone who understood, cared, and loved them in a way that felt natural and enduring. As evening fell, they found themselves watching the sunset from a quiet hill overlooking the city. The sky blazed with hues of orange, pink, and gold, the beauty of the moment reflecting the warmth and depth of their connection. They held hands, hearts aligned in quiet gratitude, aware that life would continue to bring challenges and joys, yet confident that they would face them together. And so, their love story born from a simple, chance encounter, nurtured through understanding, patience, and shared experiences, reached a point of quiet fulfillment. It was not a story of perfection, but of authenticity, resilience, and the profound beauty of two people discovering and cherishing each other fully. They knew that life would continue to unfold, with its mix of ordinary days and extraordinary moments, yet they were ready. Together, they had built a foundation of trust, respect, and care. Together, they had found a love that was real, lasting, and deeply human. And as they walked down the quiet streets, hand in hand, they understood that the story was far from over. It was only just beginning. A journey of shared life, laughter, challenges, and endless possibilities, side by side, forever moving forward together.